Well, I did my television presentation on Saturday Night Live. And for starters, Saturday Night Live was created in 1975. The showing was on NBC on October 11th, 1975. It's an American sketch comedy series created and produced by Corn Michaels. Basically, the whole premise of the show is that it's hosted by a celebrity guest who usually gives an opening monologue and performs in sketches, and performances by musical guests usually happen about halfway through the show. Basically, what goes on within the show is the comedians come up with little, like, probably 5 to 10 minute sketches where they act out like comedy stuff, and they usually talk a lot about parodies over like what's going on in culture or politics, and it's usually performed by a varying comedy cast. We know a lot of stars who've gotten most of their stardom from Saturday Night Live, like Bill Murray, Will Ferrell, Eddie Murphy, a bunch today, but the actual original cast of Saturday Night Live included Lorraine Newman, John Belushi, Jane Curtin, Gilda Radner, Dan Aykroyd, Garrett Murs, and Chevy Chase. And I think that's funny because I've seen Chevy Chase in a lot of like National Lampoon movies, and that's where he actually got started. He was one of the first original cast members in 1975. Oops. Okay, some political and social issues at the time. At this time, like, the Vietnam War was over. I mean, people were still, like, it was in the mid-70s, people were kind of in that hippie stage, like peace, love, and happiness. The Watergate issue with Nixon that had gone on, and if you've ever watched Saturday Night Live before, they've had multiple skits on politicians such as like Nixon or Bush. Civil rights movements were still going on between racism. They're also integrating African American children into predominantly white schools, and that was an issue at the time because we still had racism going on. The abortion issue, Roe versus Wade, was in 1975. Women's liberation movement. This was a time women started to actually want to be more equal to men, and there was a lot of social issues about that at the time. And lastly, labor strikes. The Brookside mine, people were upset that they'll work these long hours and they wouldn't get paid fairly, and that was really an issue back in the 70s. But how political and social issues affected on SNL? Well, the cast first off consisted of 3 white men and 3 white women, and then 1 African American cast member. And I think when they first started the show, they wanted this to be for all audiences, women, men, and even probably by putting in African American, it would open up the door to the African American community. But definitely with all the women's rights going on and the civil movements still partaking, that this really affected who NBC wanted to be on this comedy show. And then this brought diversity to the cast, so it's appealing to all audiences. The whole idea of the show is it was used to create comic relief from political and social issues at the time. There's multiple segments on the show where they'll pretend that they're a news anchor team and they talk about the news, and they will always kind of bring some comic relief to what's going on in the world today, whether it was the Nixon Watergate issue or the women's liberation right movement. Saturday Night Live always tried to bring some kind of laughter to a situation that might be really bad, and I mean that was the whole premise of the show. But they actually had a segment where they were news anchors, and they would just keep talking about all the issues in the world and just kind of make little jokes about it. Like one of the very first ones in 1975, Chevy Chase did one about terrorism over in Afghanistan, and it's kind of funny to see how even in 1975 they were worried about it, and today we're worrying about it still. But especially when it came to politicians, Saturday Night Live brought a lot of satire to the situations, like Hillary Clinton, even as the show still goes on today, George Bush. I mean, they kind of brought the humanly side to a lot of these politicians, brought them more down to kind of earth with their skits. And then SNL brought people together with their witty skits. I mean, whatever the situation might be going on in the world, SNL really liked to put that a part of their show, and they even still do that today. Like whatever is going on, if something happens, like they might have to improvise their show for that week to make it more appealing to what's going on in the world today. So, I mean, the show's been extremely successful, and it's gone on for almost 3 decades now, and probably more to come. But thank you.